Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session, Quarterly Planning Accelerator with Valiantys and Easy Agile. Just going to wait until 3 minutes past the hour to allow everybody some time to join today's session. But while we wait, if you are here, and bonus points for being early and on time, if you can share in the chat section where you are dialing in from today, what's the time, and what is the weather like? I'll kick it off. I am dialing in from Wollongong, which is on the southeast coast of Australia. It's about 90 minutes south of Sydney. We are definitely heading into summer. It was, between 30 and 32 degrees today. So definitely getting hot, and it has just gone 9 p.m. for me. Aslam, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm dialing in from Essex, UK. For those people who are familiar in London, it's not that far away, just 30 minutes drive from London. The weather has been quite surprisingly better than last week, I should say, because I thought it was an early winter for us, but then now it started pouring. But luckily, it's a blessing today when I stepped out. Stopped raining, so I'm looking forward to today. But yeah, that's my weather here.
It looks like we've got a couple of other folks from the UK dialing in too. Hello, Des from London. Jane also dialing in from London. It's wet and miserable. I wish I could send you a couple degrees Celsius your way to the London folk, because it has been quite steamy over here. Alistair is dialing in from sunny Malta. Beautiful. Julia, Bucks in the UK. 10 a.m. Yuck. We've got Caitlin from the Easy Agile team in Australia. Hey, Caitlin. And Manuel from Frankfurt in Germany. Okay, so we've got a few folks spread across a few parts of the world, all corners of the globe, it seems. Thank you so much for your time and joining Aslam and I. It's a privilege. Kiev is on the wire. We're steadily heading to winter. Okay. Thanks for sharing, everybody. Really appreciate all the participation in the chat. It's going to gear up to be a great session. I might kick us off then. So before we do dive in, though, I just wanted to share some housekeeping. So first, everyone's microphones are disabled by default. So if you do have any questions during the presentation, please don't wait until the end. Please use the chat section, which it seems like you're all very familiar with, which is great. If you haven't found the chat, I believe it's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We've got a chunk of time saved at the end of the session to answer your questions. And for any questions that we don't have time to answer, we'll make sure to follow up off the back of today's session with those as well. So please don't fret. Also, very important, today's session will be recorded, and we will be sure to send a link to your registered email after the session. So that may come in a couple of days, but rest assured it will land in your inboxes. And finally, I wanted to pose a challenge to you all on the call today, and that is to not take any notes. I know that can be controversial, but stay with me. I wanted to share a technique that was shared by Dom Price, who is the work futurist at Atlassian. And if you've been in the Atlassian ecosystem in any part, you've probably come across Dom Price in some shape or form. But he really believes that we're all kind of overdosing on information, and that it's not helping our productivity, and we need to fill the gap between knowledge and action. So rather than taking any notes today, I challenge you to only write down actions. What is it that you're going to take back into your organizations as a result of attending today's session, and action within your organization? And Aslam and I would love to hear what some of those are at the end of this call. So let's dive straight in.
Yeah, so thanks, Tegan, for that great reminder, because writing down actions and then following through those definitely makes the biggest difference. If not, what happens is we'll have a pile of knowledge, but not necessarily success. So I think only way to reach success is going to be starting to take action. So I'm Muslim Kader. I'm an Agile and Atlassian expert. I'm very passionate about helping our customers maximize their Atlassian investment, and I always try to deliver value at every interaction. So what I do at Valiantys is I lead the enterprise strategy and planning practice. And for those who don't know Valiantys is a leading global IT consultancy firm dedicated to enabling new ways of working with Atlassian. So Valiantys has been contributing to the Atlassian ecosystem since 2006, and it's also worth mentioning Valiantys is the largest Atlassian Enterprise Platinum partner who is all in Atlassian.
Thanks, Aslam. Hi, everybody. Thank you again for joining. My name is Tegan. I'm the Customer Experience Manager here at Easy Agile. I've been with Easy Agile. I just celebrated my 7-year anniversary, which I think is like 49 dog years. So I've been on a long and exciting journey with Easy Agile. A little bit about us as a company. We were founded in 2015 by 2 ex-Atlassians who had worked on the Jira team as a product manager and as a developer. After Atlassian, our CEO, Nick Muldoon, he moved to Twitter, where he was responsible for accelerating the agile transformation of their engineering practice. And they went through ginormous growth within the first 12 months of Nick being there. I think they grew, expanded by more than 1,000 people in their engineering practice. So it was quite a significant time in Twitter's life. And the combination of their technical experience with Jira paired with their agile transformation experience is what birthed Easy Agile 8 years ago. And in short, we are a Atlassian marketplace vendor, which means that we create apps that sit on the Atlassian marketplace, of which we have 4 today. And they're all in the pursuit of our purpose, which is to help teams improve their ways of working at all layers of the organization, so that they're not just doing Agile, but they're realizing the benefits of Agile. So what have you all signed up for today? So the purpose of today's session is to provide you with actionable strategies to improve the effectiveness and the benefits of your quarterly planning. So throughout the next 15 minutes, Aslam and I are going to be sharing why quarterly planning matters for scaling Agile effectively, the top 3 quarterly planning challenges that we've observed in our experience with working with a range of organizations across various industries and of various sizes. So hopefully at least some of what we're talking about today will resonate with many different people in the room today based on the type of industry or size of organization that you're currently working in. And finally, we really want to give you best practices to overcome those challenges, as well as some tactical strategies that you can take away today and deploy across your organization. Throughout the session today, you'll also see some examples of our app, Easy Agile programs, and how that can help you tackle some of these challenges at scale.
Great, Tegan. So before we jump into discussing the common challenges that we see in quarterly planning, it's important to touch on what makes quarterly planning such an important ceremony for scaling Agile effectively. So quarterly planning serves as the backbone for scaling Agile because it brings all teams together to align on priorities, address dependencies, and set a clear direction for upcoming quarterly planning cycles. So let's explore 3 key reasons to why quarterly planning matters. Reason 1, create alignment across teams. As organizations scale, the number of teams and the complexity of their interdependencies grow exponentially. Without quarterly planning, teams can easily lose sight of how their work contributes to the broader business goals. A well-structured quarterly planning session ensures everyone understands what we are building, why it matters, and how our teams will collaborate to deliver it. It's all about creating a shared understanding so no teams operates in silos.
Yeah, thanks, Aslam. Reason number 2 is around proactively managing risks and dependencies. And this, I think, with both Aslam and I, this is one of the biggest and most common challenges that we see when scaling Agile is really managing those dependencies between teams. And quarterly planning helps put you on the front foot and provide the forum to identify those potential risks early, to map those dependencies out visually. Many of you may be getting PTSD by the image of the screen of the physical program board and what that activity looks like. So I hope that that's not bringing back too many terrible memories. But that visual dependency mapping is super important for creating that visibility and transparency, and also developing mitigation plans collaboratively and creating that shared buy-in from the onset. So this proactive approach not only reduces bottlenecks, but it also helps build trust and accountability across teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I think dependencies are going to be quite an important one, and especially it also reminds us to starting to take actions by visualizing those dependencies. But yeah, absolutely, that's just one of the most critical ones to solve. The reason three is driving continuous improvements and predictability. Quarterly planning builds a cadence of reflection and commitment. Teams can look back at the past performance to improve future cycles and create realistic, achievable plans. So these results better predictability, something that every organizations as they scale. And most importantly, like as agile transformations are concerned, predictability is one of the most important things most executives look forward to.
So I think, in a perfect world, we would all be the beneficiaries of the benefits that Aslam and I talked about. And I think that we all, go into quarterly planning with the best of intentions to see those benefits. But the reality is that is not always the case. And so we'd be remiss not to highlight the challenges that many teams face when trying to get quarterly planning right. And I think, many teams, particularly in large or distributed organizations, they face obstacles that can undermine the effectiveness of their planning sessions. So now Aslam and I are going to explore some of the most common quarterly planning challenges that we've experienced working with teams, and provide you with some best practice and tactical strategies on how to implement that best practice.
Cool. So communication breakdowns. Based on my experience, this is one of the most common challenge that most organizations go through. So effective communication is glue that holds agile teams together when scaling agile. Communication breakdowns are very common, costly, and also challenging. Without clear and consistent communications, teams struggle to stay aligned. Of course, the trust erodes within the teams, and the risks can spiral into significant delays. So let's explore why this happens and how to address them with some of the strategies that we'll be discussing here. So best practice number one, build trust between teams. When teams don't understand each other's priorities, it can lead to friction or lack of confidence in one another's work. And misaligned expectations can cause frustration, especially when dependencies are not met as expected. Building trust requires creating an environment where teams have complete transparency in each other's plans and their progress and the challenges. And to try and tackle this particular challenge, some of the key strategies that you could look into is going to be having regular check-ins, visual tools like shared program boards to foster trust by ensuring everyone has the same information and can openly discuss those challenges. Best practice two is stay in sync. Staying in sync is particularly difficult in large organizations where teams are distributed across time zones or working in hybrid settings. Without proper synchronizations, teams can unknowingly duplicate efforts. Important updates might not reach all stakeholders, leading to misaligned execution. And also, it becomes harder to adjust plans dynamically when priorities shift. So some of the strategies that you could use here is going to be using integrated tools that centralize the updates and maintain real-time visibility into teams' activities and ensures everyone is working off the same page. And best practice number three, expose unplanned work. Unplanned work is one of the costly disruptors in quarterly planning. It sneaks in when communication is unclear, making it hard to differentiate between planned tasks and last minute requests. I'm sure this is very common across most teams that they are challenged with. So this hidden work pulls people and resources away from high priority goals. Teams feel blindsided, which can erode morale. And key strategies that you could use to tackle this particular challenge is implementing mechanisms to identify and document unplanned work in real time, such as backlog refinement sessions, dependency tracking tools to keep surprises to the minimum. And then we come to the best practice 4. Make risks and opportunities visible. When communication breaks down, risks often remain hidden until it's too late and opportunities goes unnoticed. For example, a delayed dependency might not be flagged early, can jeopardize the timeline for multiple teams. A potential cross-team collaboration could be missed because teams weren't aware of the overlapping goals. Some of the key strategies that you could use here is going to be like visual dependency mapping, risk tracking, not only to expose risks, but also to highlight opportunities for teams to collaborate and innovate. So let's take a moment to reflect on a striking statistics from the Standish Group's chaos report. 52% of the projects either challenged or they fail outright. And one of the biggest contributors to this is poor coordination and lack of visibility. These two factors create ripple effects that derails projects, no matter how skilled your teams are or how solid the intentions within those teams.
Yeah, thanks, Aslam. We're going to move on to the next common challenge that we experience when teams go into their quarterly planning, and that's inefficient planning processes. Planning really is the backbone of successful agile execution, but inefficient processes can derail even the best of intentions. And these inefficiencies in planning waste time, they create confusion, and they ultimately reduce the effectiveness of your scaling methodology. So we're going to examine some of the best practices around eradicating inefficient planning processes and how we can address those with some tactical strategies. Best practice number 1 is around successfully rolling out a scaling methodology. So I would say that most of you on the call today are either familiar with the concepts and frameworks, or even working in organizations where you're adopting those frameworks, such as SAFe or LESS. And they're really around aligning large teams effectively, but they depend on strong planning processes. And without them, we've experienced many teams struggle to understand and apply the methodology and adopt it consistently, which reduces its impact. So successful adoption requires clear, structured planning integrated into team workflows. And some key strategies here are around to provide clear guidance and tools that make it easy for teams to adopt and apply scaling methodologies in their day-to-day operations. And another trap that we've often experienced with rolling out these methodologies is an underinvestment in upfront training and education. So often we see that a select group of people are enrolled into training, like SAFe training, for example, and they really become a hub or a bottleneck of knowledge. And so democratizing that education to a larger group of people, while the cost up front may be higher, in the longer run, you'll see greater returns on your investment. It'll pay dividends. Best practice number 4 is all around removing bottlenecks. So bottlenecks during planning sessions slow down decision-making and they delay execution. And some of the most common bottlenecks that Aslam and I have experienced in working with teams is dependencies that aren't identified or resolved ahead of time, overloaded teams unable to commit to planned work. And this problem is also exacerbated when you have a trust issue across teams, where teams don't feel confident enough in flagging that they're overcommitted early, and miscommunication about roles and responsibilities. So these roadblocks in planning will often cascade down into the execution phase, which impacts timelines and deliverables. So some key strategies to help you implement this best practice are to kick off all new projects or initiatives with a roles and responsibilities workshop. And it may seem really simple, but it's a really underutilized and I often think undervalued tool. And so off the back of this workshop today, we're going to send you a template that you can use at the beginning of a new quarter or a new project with your teams, where you can really clearly define those roles and responsibilities before you get started. And finally, using dependency mapping and capacity planning tools. So in doing this, organizations can identify those bottlenecks early and can allocate resources more effectively. Best practice number 3 is to drive strategic alignment. So when planning processes are inefficient, it's easy for teams to lose sight of the bigger picture. And Aslam and I have seen this challenge manifest in misalignment between team goals and organizational strategy, a real focus on tasks that don't deliver high-value outcomes, and frustration when priorities change without clarity. So a key strategy to implement this best practice is to use tools that visualize organizational priorities alongside team objectives as a way of driving that alignment. And I feel like synergy had its time in the sun as a buzzword. I feel alignment also has that same kind of flavor, but I really wanted to kind of touch on the fact that it's not a buzzword. It really is business imperative. And according to research from LSA, highly aligned companies see extraordinary results that directly impact their bottom line, customer relationships, and employee satisfaction. I won't read through all of them on the screen, but you can see that, at all 3 layers there are significant implications if not addressed, or alternatively, if you look at it the other side, a real competitive advantage and return on investment if this is really a focus point for businesses. And finally, best practice number 4 is around removing double handling and rework. Double handling and rework, they really hurt productivity, and the most common, causes that Aslam and I have experienced is around poor documentation or unclear communication, misaligned understanding of requirements, shifting priorities or late feedback, and tools that force repetitive tasks across different systems. So tools that aren't integrated and speaking with each other, forcing people to essentially do the same task in multiple systems to try and provide visibility. And so some key strategies to overcome this include streamlined planning processes with clear documentation, well-defined objectives, and well-integrated and fit-for-purpose tooling. On that side, also pairing that with regular check-ins on a regular cadence to ensure that everybody is on the same page from the start. And a little bit about the cost of double handling and rework. It really is a hidden drain on business resources. And according to this one study by DACI, businesses lose around $10,000 per employee every year due to inefficiencies like duplicated work, miscommunication, and a lack of streamlined processes. So for some of the organizations that I know are on this call, like just to put this into perspective, if you worked in an organization with 1,000 employees, that's around a $10 million loss annually.
Wow, 10,000 per employee that's huge, because you can do the maths, and I think this is definitely with lots of tools that we have in the market and not bring the right solution into where work is happening. I think it's an easy thing to fix, but of course the cost is huge.
Yeah.
All right, so this brings us to the final point, slow decision making. Many of us would have experienced the cost of inefficient decision making at some point in our time, but how expensive is the cost? I'd like to invite those on the call to use the chat and tell us or guess how much it costs managers across all Fortune 500 companies annually. can be a wild guess.
An accumulation of days. I'm going to say 1,000 days.
1,000 days. Okay. Anyone else wants to make a guess? It doesn't need to be right. It just needs to be a guess.
Let's incentivize. If you get close, or if you're the only one with a guess, we'll send you a t-shirt. Weeks, 5,000 days. Aslam, why don't you tell us?
Yeah. It's a combined total of 530,000 days each year. That's a lot, right? So as you can see, what it all accounts down to. So decision making is at the heart of effective planning. Yet in many organizations, slow decision making creates delays that ripples through the teams, impacting productivity and alignment. So let's explore why this happens and how we can overcome it to help teams prioritize, collaborate, and stay aligned with their business goals. So best practice number one is to help prioritize work. When decision making stalls, it often is because teams lack clarity on what should be prioritized. Without clear framework for prioritization, teams spend too much time debating low impact work, delays, commitments, leading to missed opportunities. So efficient decision making starts with defining what matters most. This means aligning priorities with strategic business goals and ensuring everyone understands the criteria for prioritization. So some of the key strategies are to use practices like WSJIF or weighted shortest job first, or priority matrices to quickly evaluate work based on value, effort, and risks. And easier job programs makes it even simple to visualize these priorities in simple time and real time. Best practice number two is empower the team. Decision making often slows down when too much authority is centralized. Teams spend valuable time waiting for approvals and clarifications from leadership, and I'm sure that many have gone through this. And this brings disempowerment, and what it means is reducing the team's morale, limit innovation as teams hesitate to make decisions without explicit approval. Empowering teams can make decisions within the defined framework, and also help speed up processes and foster ownership of outcomes. So some of the key strategies that you could use in this particular challenge is to establish clear decision-making boundaries, giving teams the autonomy to act within those limits. And then build trust. If you think about trust and empowerment, they go hand in hand in agile environments. So using tools like a DACI or a decision tree framework to build a team's toolkit around decision making will definitely support in here. Best practice number three is to manage and work through dependencies. Dependencies are key reasons to slow decisions. Teams can move forward because their progress depends on teams or external stakeholders. Without proactive dependency management, this leads to bottlenecks that delay entire projects and even misaligned timelines and also unmet expectations. So some of the key strategies that you could use in this situation is to visualize dependencies during planning sessions using tools like dependency maps, address potential conflicts early, and assign clear ownership for resolving those blockers. And then it brings us to the best practice number four, understand how work impacts the business. Understanding how each piece of work contributes to broader business goal is important for creating alignment and prioritization effectively. Teams often lose the the sight of the bigger picture when focused on the day-to-day task, which can lead to misaligned priorities and lower impact. This is also known as like the kind of connecting the work or execution to strategy as well, because if you don't connect that information, then the teams are having the autonomy, but without the alignment. Some of the the connections here is around uh, the work and the business outcomes. And then when you think about it, the organizations risk spending too much time and resources on low priority initiatives, failing to meet strategic goals due to misalignment. And some of the key strategies in this situation that you could employ here is to integrate business impact assessments into the planning. During planning sessions, evaluate how each process, task, or feature aligns with the business objectives. This ensures that the teams focus on the high impact work and have a clear understanding of why their contributions matter. Use program boards to visualize strategic alignment, and program boards provides a visual representation of how individual tasks and features contributes to the broader outcomes. By mapping the task and strategic goals, you give the teams the context that they need to stay aligned and motivated. By embedding these practices into your planning process, teams will stay focused on what matters most, driving both immediate success and results for long-term success. That's a mouthful. Handing over to Tegan.
Thanks, Aslam. I know that we've just gone on that 30-minute mark. We've probably only got a couple of minutes left, but now that we've kind of talked about the importance of quarterly planning as a practice, and we've talked about kind of challenges and best practice, Aslam, how can Easy Agile and Valiantys help the people from organizations on the call to embed some of those actions within their businesses?
So we have come across in terms of a joint mission in terms of helping to sustain these changes and to help master the quarterly planning. So probably we might be able to introduce our quarterly planning accelerator bootcamp. But before heading there, I think one of the statistics around here is the study that has been published by McKinsey that 70% of the businesses transformations fail. One of the contributing factors is that insufficient investments in building the capabilities to sustain the change across the organizations. When you think about the quarterly planning, let me introduce you to the Planning Accelerator Bootcamp. So we have designed this bootcamp series to help teams effectively implement the strategies we mentioned along with industry best practices and our years of experience working with the teams. So the teams who took part in the bootcamp have shared it has been a game changer for their successfully planning and preparing and even executing their quarterly planning. So what does it involve? Over 4 days, either in person or remotely, Valiantys will be immerse your teams in hands-on learning to sharpen preparations, implement actionable strategies, and execute with confidence. With our expert coaching and practical playbooks, you'll learn to identify and address dependencies proactively, ensuring seamless collaboration across teams. We also set you up for long-term success by integrating scalable, repeatable, agile processes with easy agile programs configured to fit your operations. By end of this bootcamp, your teams will be aligned, prepared, and equipped to sustain the change.
Thank you, Aslam. So off the back of this webinar, we'll send you some more information about the Accelerator Bootcamp, also with a link on how you can connect with Aslam and I to learn more about whether it would be valuable in your organization. I know that we've just gone on time. I can see that there are still 14 people who remain on the call. So of those 14 people, were there any questions that you had for either Aslam or I? If you can't hang around for a few more minutes, if you put them in the chat, we will make sure to get back to you off the back of this session with those responses as well. Okay, I can see one question here, Aslam. How do you ensure teams' work is actually mapped?
I think it comes down to the strong processes and understanding the aim of an organization. So I think most importantly, kind of creating that alignment around what matters for them as an organization and starting to be able to connect those outcomes to these outputs that they're working on is going to be quite an important one to make sure that they start mapping the teamwork.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And I've got one more here. The success of the mapping requires buy-in from multiple teams? How do you best influence those teams to use the same workflows if they have something else in place? That's a great question. And I think one of the most effective ways to start is really highlighting what the cost of staying the same is. So what is the cost of the current inefficiencies or the challenges in transparency or communication? What is the cumulative cost of not resolving that issue? I think you've also got to, you need to get alignment and buy-in from leadership. And often when you put a dollar figure around the cost of staying the same and the current issues that you're dealing with today and present that to them, it's a more effective way of getting them on board. In terms of like tactically getting teams to buy in and use the same workflows, we often will start with a small group who are motivated and excited about the opportunity and use them as a pilot to demonstrate the success. And I think one of the key benefits that we've been able to demonstrate to customers through this service and product offering is that by working in the same ways and working, within the same cadence, even to an extent, the insights, the rich insights that you get around those bottlenecks and those dependencies and the health of those things would otherwise be completely unknown, and teams would be left in the dark. And I think once we are able to showcase those insights to the broader business, we've then been able to see that kind of snowball effect around other teams wanting to also get involved, and it becomes less about the initial problem, which is we don't want to, work in the same way or have the same workflows. It becomes more focused on the outcome of how do we also get that level of visibility into our bottlenecks and dependencies that team is. So yeah, that's kind of how we would tackle that one there. And I'll just check the chat for one final question. Mike has asked, any advice on effectively estimating costs and benefits without dedicating excessive time to the process and delaying decisions? I can kick that one off, Aslam, if that's okay.
Yeah, you go ahead. Yeah.
I think so. Some of the ROI statistics that both Aslam and I shared today, that's a really low effort way. So finding those industry benchmarks around what the cost of these problems is, on a certain industry or a certain org type. So that's one way. We as a app vendor also have an ROI calculator that we're happy to work with people on around, what the cost of your current processes could potentially be costing your business in terms of hours or days or dollars, and how we can help to kind of optimize some of those areas. So they're kind of two really no cost tactics. Aslam, anything else you'd add to that?
No, I think trying to build that cost and kind of understand the business benefit is going to be quite an important one, because I think one of the things I mentioned is that if you didn't take action, then there is a cost for that as a result of it. So I think start taking action and creating also the sustainable change is going to be very important, because there is a lot of investment that goes in, but not necessarily there's enough information or support in terms of sustaining that change. So basically all that investment would go in vain. So not having the right the model or the governance around that. Yeah.
Thanks, Haslam. Well, I'm conscious that we've almost gone 10 minutes over, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So if you've hung around to this point, thank you so much. If you do have any questions that come to mind off the back of this, there's both mine and Aslam's email addresses. Please feel free to reach out. We'd also both love to hear any action items that you wrote down during the session as well. And just another reminder that you will also receive the recording of this, and we'd really encourage you to share that with other people in your teams across the business too.
And also, Tegan, I noticed there is some questions coming in, but we will reach out to you individually to try and address your questions. And happy Thanksgiving. If any of the Americans are on the call, then happy Thanksgiving. And for the remaining, wish you rest of a great weekend, and also have a good one.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.